Hey everyone, Tekking here. Okay, so about a month ago, I made this video right here, Saitama versus Everyone, where I basically just go in and explain my thoughts about Saitama's character and One Punch manga in general, One Punch Man manga in general, and why I was particularly tackling people that were putting Saitama in crossover battles with Goku and like other really strong characters in manga, and I was trying to basically explain why you can't really do that because of Saitama's character and his invincibility. And I know, the second I said that, there's a shit ton of you that went, he's not invincible because X, Y, and Z. Okay, just hold up. I know. And yeah, that was a video that got over 100,000 views, and I'm basically making this one here as a sequel. I want to continue on with this discussion because there was legitimately a few things that I forgot to mention in that video, and there's a few things I've thought of since then, and maybe better ways to actually lay this out. And also because every single video I do that's One Punch Man related ends up getting a shit ton of views anyway, so I'm gonna capitalize on that. But the first thing I think I should begin with was that there was a line of dialogue. I mentioned it maybe like once or twice in the video, but I didn't really, like maybe explain how important this line of dialogue was when trying to rebut my claim. And the line of dialogue basically went like, and I'm paraphrasing myself here, but it was like, do not look at Saitama's strength like just in the context of the manga. You have to look at it in the context of what the mangaka is trying to convey with One Punch Man, the manga. What the genre is, what Saitama's character represents. Don't just look at it like, oh, well, Saitama's human, therefore he can be defeated by non-human characters. That's not the way you can look at it. And I mean, you can look at it that way, but I think you're missing the grander point here. I don't want to come off as condescending here. I don't want to come off as like, you guys completely missed the point. Let me tell you what's what. I don't want to come off like that, but I just want to bring up some stuff here. Like, okay, I'm going to read a comment I received on this video. Saitama isn't invincible. If a character stays out of his range and uses far-ranged attacks, they would win because Saitama is a close-range attacker. That is looking at it from just the context of the manga itself, just from the story. Alright, and in order for me to properly explain what, at least my way of thinking, that's what this video's point is. It's less about trying to convince you and more or less trying to accurately explain what the way is that I'm looking at this. So at least you can understand the method of my madness. And at the end of this whole thing, if you can still sit there and be like, okay, Matt, I understand your way of thinking, but your way of thinking is flawed, and here is why. Alright, that's fine. I'm perfectly accepted that stuff. Okay. So let's start from the beginning. Alright, I'm going to make a claim here. Alright, and we can just go with this. Alright. You, that is you as a human being, have limits. All human beings have limits. I'm not trying to be, symbolic here or anything. You as a human being have limits. Can you admit this? Of course you can. All human beings have limits. If I was to make a claim that humans cannot lift 30,000 tons, I think everybody would agree with that, right? Don't pull off the shit like, no, well, not if you're John Cena. No. If you're a human being, it's impossible for you to lift 30,000 tons under your own power. It's impossible for anything, animals on this planet to lift that much weight. Maybe in a couple hundred years we'll maybe discover, like, anti-gravity shit. But for right now, a human being cannot lift 30,000 tons under their own power. Human beings have limits, okay? When it comes to fictional characters, however, they do not have limits. Or rather to say, their limit is the human that has their imagination, the imagination of the person that creates them, okay? Do you agree with me on that so far? So if I was to draw, let's just invent a character. We'll just invent a fictional character. Let's call him Tech Man, all right? And he's a superhero I just invented. And I'm imagining him as like a superhero. There's a stick figure superhero with a big T on his chest because I suck at drawing. But yeah, so that's my fictional character that I just created, okay? Now, because this is a fictional character, I can do whatever the fuck I want with him. I can have him lift 30,000 tons. I can have him lift 30 trillion tons. I could have him blow up the entire universe by just sneezing. Because he's my fictional character. I could do whatever I want with him. Okay, now that's not with my character. Anybody that creates a fictional character has complete reign over what they can do. So now we're going to move this over to the discussion about manga. All right. So let's use Naruto, for instance. Masashi Kishimoto, he invented Naruto. He can do whatever he wants with Naruto. He's the complete arbiter of Naruto's existence, okay? Any restraints that are placed on Naruto are placed by Kishimoto, okay? But if Kishimoto really wanted to, he could draw a manga chapter where Naruto makes a Rasengan the size of Earth and blows up the sun. It wouldn't make any sense in the context, but he could do it if he so choose. He could draw it, he can put it in, he created Naruto, he can say it's canon. I think a lot of people would be pissed at him for that, and there would be a lot of rioting, but he could do that. Now, the reason that he doesn't do that, the reason that, you know, like, Naruto is a character that has many limits and that can lose fights, the same thing with Luffy, who's created by Oda, and Ichigo, that's created by Kubo, is because they are trying to tell serious stories, dramatic stories, stories where their characters are not invincible, characters that can be defeated, and that's like an internal struggle and an external struggle, all right? So I guess I should say that if you want your story to be taken seriously by an audience, and if you want it to be very dramatic, then you have to put limits on your fictional characters. Do you agree with me up to this point? Not like you can really interact with this conversation, but you understand where I'm going to. All right. That's all well and good when it comes to a manga that's trying to be serious, trying to tell a serious story. But when we get into the realms of parody and satire, it is a whole different ballgame. Whole different ballgame. And One Punch Man is that different ballgame. It's a satire of battle manga, of battle shonen manga to be precise. Okay, when you have a character that is as strong as Saitama, that can defeat every main opponent in that series with no problems, that is called a parody, my friends. That is what that is. Now, when it comes to parody, you can break whatever rules you want in that system. Not like there were any rules to begin with. Like I said, the rule about, you know, if you want your story to be taken seriously, you have to have limits on your character. Like, you can't, like, Oda can't just be like, I'm going to give, okay, Luffy fights a Kainu and beats him in one punch. I mean, that would be like, okay, no, there's no tension there. It's just taking me completely out of the story. But with parody, you can do whatever the fuck you want. So, bringing this back to where this whole thing started with crossover battles, I noticed a lot of people were bringing up characters from comic books. Now, I'm not a comic book guy. I'm just not. All right, but a lot of people were saying, like, oh, well, manga, that's all well and good, whatever, with Saitama, but, you know, Thanos would fuck his shit up in 2 seconds. Or like Doctor Strange, which I know nothing about Doctor Strange other than he's a wizard, I guess. I don't know. Like I said, once again, I don't read comics. He's like, oh, he wouldn't even be able to touch Doctor Strange. Or what about characters that can manipulate space? You know, like, okay. Like I said, I don't know anything about comics, but I'm going to assume Thanos, pretty strong dude. The only thing I know about Thanos is he's, you know, from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's the only thing I know about Thanos. He has the Infinity Gauntlet, shit like that. I'm sure there's a 1,001 other things that Thanos can do that would manage to kill a lot of people. But here's the thing. Thanos is not meant to be a parody character. He's meant to be taken seriously. All right, so let's use my Tekking101 example. Like, okay, what if I say Tekking101... he has a anti-Infinity Gauntlet glove that will destroy Thanos because he can just destroy the Infinity Gauntlet and destroy Thanos in just one punch, and that's that. You would look at that and be like, well, that's the way a child would look at it. That's not to be taken serious. That's just ridiculous. He has an anti-Infinity Gauntlet. Where would he even get such a thing? How would such a thing be crafted? It's like, yeah, it's almost like it's not supposed to be taken seriously or something. In the realms of parody, it's ridiculous. It doesn't matter. But if you have a serious character defeat a parody character, that character just loses all seriousness. But if you have a parody character defeat a serious character, then that's just a fucking ball. That's just part of the ball game. It's a false dichotomy. Comparing a parody character to a character that's supposed to be taken seriously in the context of their own series anyway, because of course we're talking about all fictional characters here, but a character that's supposed to be taken seriously as opposed to a parody character, that's a false dichotomy. Comparing them is just like, It's like comparing, I don't know, that watermelon is very similar to a car tire. It'd be like, No. No, there's so many things why they're different, I can't even begin. One more thing, and this goes back to crossover battles too. One more thing. Because people, they have said, well, if I do a crossover battle, I'm taking Saitama out of his universe and I'm putting him in like a neutral universe. And that's how I do mine whenever I do my crossover battles, like once a year. That's how I do my crossover battles. So he might be invincible in his own universe, but if I take him out of that, then he's just like par for the course when it comes to like strong characters, you know. He's strong, but he's still human and has limits. I would go so far to say at that point that his invincibility, his indestructibility, that would be part of his character. And if you take away that factor, if you take away the invincibility, if you take away his ability, you know, I win every fight with minimal to no effort or with one serious punch. If you take that factor away from him, you're no longer dealing with Saitama. It would be like if I do a crossover battle with Kenpachi Zaraki in Naruto. I mean, oh, no, I'm sorry. Kenpachi Zaraki in Bleach versus Kisame from Naruto. But I take away Zaraki's bloodthirsty aspect from his character. I'm like, okay, we're still using Kenpachi, but I'm going to take away that bloodthirstiness that makes his character unique. I'm no longer dealing with Kenpachi Zaraki anymore, as he is designed by Kubo. Kubo gets to decide who is Kenpachi Zaraki. If I take away an element that Kubo gave him, I'm no longer dealing with Kenpachi Zaraki. I'm dealing with a character that's very similar to him, but I'm not dealing with his character anymore. Same thing with Saitama. If you take away the ability to win any fight with a single serious punch, then you're no longer dealing with the character anymore as one designed him. You're dealing with a character that you yourself crafted. That's fine if you want to go through with that, but I think that's not being very, true to a crossover battle. And I've gotten arguments from this, like, well, his indestructibility is not really part of his character, and I just think it is, and if you disagree on that, that's just a personal difference we have. But yeah, I think I covered everything in this video that I really wanted to get across. So if you have a problem with anything I said, please leave your comments below on why you think my reasoning is faulty. But I basically just zoom back and look at it from a bigger picture. I don't simply look at it like, well, Saitama can't breathe in space, so therefore he would lose against Frieza, who can breathe in space. I'm like, if one really, it's a parody. He can, like, okay, remember back in the golden age of comics? I at least know this much about comics. When Superman existed back in the golden age, they basically gave him whatever superpower they wanted to give him. You know? Like, I think there was, like, one issue where he sneezed and, like, he created or destroyed a solar system. Like, just absolutely ridiculous, bonkers shit, which did actually edge on. It was parody. It was fucking craziness back then. And then they had to rebuild him to make him more serious, to tell an actual story around him. Because if you were using the Superman from back then, yeah, it would be ridiculous. It would be satire at that point. But my point is that if one gave Saitama just, like, the ability to, like, oh, all of a sudden Saitama can just, breathe in space and destroy whole fucking universes with one punch, it'd be like, oh no, something ridiculous is happening. Something ridiculous and something that doesn't make sense is happening in this parody manga. Holy shit, didn't see that coming. But yeah, just looking at it from that logic is ridiculous, in my way of viewing it. Anyway, there was one more thing I wanted to bring up here. Oh, yeah. There was a statement, apparently, one made, where, when the anime was coming out, there was this interview where he said, oh, the abilities of Saitama's power, the cap of his power is equivalent to, like, 1/2 power of the Big Bang or something. I heard that's just a rumor from what I can gather. I cannot find any viable interviews or any actual, sources for this statement that apparently was made. If you have one, be my guest, but that wouldn't change the fact that it's still a parody. And that sounds like when you come out and say, like, if someone directly asked one, if that was a serious interview, if someone directly asked one, like, what's the total ability of Saitama's power, and he comes up with, like, oh, it's about half the power of the Big Bang. That sounds like an answer you would give when you're just talking about a character that's just like, whatever, I just do whatever the fuck I want with him. Yeah, he's about this strong. But that's my point. If at one point Saitama gets a power that just rewrites everything he's done up to this point, it's not like I'm going to be sitting here like, oh, the fucking manga's ruined. What the fuck? It's not going to be the same thing with, like, Naruto turning into a planet buster all of a sudden, you know? It's just two different series, two different genres. That's it. I'm done. Rant's over. Comment below on what you think. Pretty sure I nailed this, so if this video gets another 100,000 views, maybe I'll make a third part. I don't know, but that's where we're going. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking101 signing out. Later.